So I was teaching a class a couple of years back about Jesus and his exclusive claims. And at the end of the class, I opened it up for question and answer, and I'll never forget one woman who stood up, raised her hand. Her name was Leslie. She was a young blonde girl who had majored in Eastern religions. And she stood up and she asked, "How could you be so arrogant, so bigoted, so intolerant and closed-minded to think in the world of all of these different options that there's only one way to God? How dare you think that kind of a thought?" And I thought, well, thank you very much for your kind question. And then I began to ask her some questions in response back. And I said, "Leslie, I appreciate your sentiment and the heart that that comes from. So let me ask you a question. Do you think it's possible that there's a God who exists out there? And that God really is one way and he's not another way, regardless of what people say, that he just is the way that he is, and if people say he's different than that, then they could be wrong." And she said, "I guess that's possible." And let's say that God created a world that's here and it's kind of spinning on its axis and, becoming the world that we live on. And God said, "I want the people that I created on that world to know exactly who I am and what I'm really like." Do you think it's possible for this God to choose to communicate with a world like this? She said, "Well, sure." And I said, "And what if this God said, you know what, when I go and talk to people, I'm going to tell them that I really am this way and not that way. I really am the way that I am." Is that possible? Sure, it's possible to do that. What if God says, "I'm this way and not that way"? Is it arrogant for God to communicate to the planet that I am this way and not that way? And she started to see where I was going with that. She said, "I guess it wouldn't be arrogant for God to say he is that way." And I said, that's what we claim about what Jesus did. When he told us about God and he died on the cross on our behalf, he said, "I'm going to make a way for you, and it's really this way and not that way." I said, "Well, let me take it a step further then. What if you're somebody who runs into that God? You hear his message and you say, 'I believe it, and I believe God is really this way and not that way.' Is it arrogant to believe that?" And she says, "Well, if God said it, that's the way he is, and it really is, I guess it's not arrogant." And I said, "And what if you were that person and you told other people all around you that God really is one way and not the other way? Not because I said it or because I'm so smart or I'm better than other people, but just because that's what God said. Would that be arrogant?" And finally she said, "I see your point. What you haven't proven to me, though, is that that really happened. That there really is a God, and he really did come, and he really did die, and he really did communicate these kinds of things." And so I said, "Okay, Leslie, well then your job over the next 6 weeks," that's how long the class was, "your job over the next 6 weeks is to discover whether or not that really happened. And if it did happen, you agree with God instead of just saying that it's arrogant, because the truth is, to put your own views to the side and agree with God is actually humility. And the doors of God are not just open to a few. The doors are open to everybody. Whatever your economic level is, men and women, rich and poor, people who are black and white and yellow and brown and every color of the rainbow are welcome in God's family. As a matter of fact, God's family spreads the furthest among those who are poor, those who are non-white, and those who are women in this world. These are the people who embrace Jesus the most readily. And Jesus is available for everyone. It's not an exclusive club. It's a club that Jesus invites everybody into."